All right, welcome back to the DenofTruth, beautiful people. It's your boy Tino. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to everyone who's been liking and supporting the show. I deeply appreciate that. All the shares, everyone keep doing that. You know, we're really trying to do something great over here, and we can't do it without your support. I appreciate all the shares and the messages. If I can't get to you, I'm grinding, but I'm gonna try get out to you. So look, that being said, today on the Den, we got someone who I don't use this word quite often, but I think this word for this man is quite necessary. And that word is a culture connoisseur. Fire.
Fire.
Since I was 16, hanging out with people like James, who's currently running the honor store, people like Nick, people like Stanley. I've always been around creative people. They put me in a lot of creative people, and they put me in a lot of creative things in regards to things that people are doing in Sydney. And one brand that's really stood out, and a group of people who've also really stood out, was definitely Sydney Romantics. And people who have dedicated themselves to Sydney culture for such a long period of time. They could have sold out, they could have went in different ways, but they chose to really focus on Sydney in itself, developing Sydney's culture. So today we got one representative of the Sydney Romantics, but we got Jodia with us. So Jodia, how are you? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me here.
No worries.
Just made me a bit nervous with all those words, man. But
man, look, I gotta look. You gotta give credit to people while they're still there.
I totally
you know what I mean?
I totally agree.
But look, I guess one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the show and why I really like Sydney Romantic is because even though you guys are a clothing brand, you guys are much bigger than that, also in the same
100%.
sense. So really, I want to talk about how did you guys start Sydney Romantics? Can you take us back to the beginning and what was the process?
Well, before Sydney Romantics, both Ryan and I been in the garment fashion industry for a long time. I've been in the fashion industry since 2003. I was a creative director for Women's on Insight.
Oh,
the
shit,
brand
okay.
called Insight, and with Subi as well.
Yeah.
And Deus after that. I was a head designer at Deus Ex Machina. So really strong Australian brands. And during that time, just traveling extensively during that time, like everybody else, you see the world, and like everybody else, you'd wear a New York hat or you'd wear an LA hat.
Yeah.
But with no real connection. Maybe the biggest connection was the culture that you kind of saw through the TV screen, obviously music. But the more I traveled, the more I realized that, and came home and being excited to come home, that this place that we lived in did, dance to the beat of its own drum.
Yeah.
It felt like it had its own flavor here. And so more than anything, during that time, I created an imaginary brand called Sydney Romantic. Actually, it started as a blog that I started called the Sydney Romantic. It was just an excuse for me to take photos of unseen places within Sydney. And then created this imaginary brand called Sydney Romantics, purely for friends to represent our hometown. And so I made a few jackets, caps, baseball jerseys through Ebbsfield Flannels.
Yep.
And purely by word of mouth, just reached out to the homies and saying, who wants one? And made to order. Sold out once, sold out twice, and we're kind of bored with the particular places that we're working and working for other people in particular. Ryan was like, "Yo, this Sydney Romantics thing's got legs. Let's quit our day jobs, and do this thing."
I mean, that's wild. I mean,
it is wild, man.
You guys, obviously had really good careers. I mean, a lot of people would dream to be a head designers for, working with brands like Subi, which is everywhere right now. And, you guys gave everything up to just, start your own brand.
Yeah.
So, I guess what was the process in doing that? I mean, that's a big leap in faith.
It was. We kind of went in there quite blind and naive. We knew the design side of things, but the business side of things, completely different story.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of this, and we've had some great support financially as well, just a little bit, but we did, made quite a few mistakes here and there, but we pretty much just went in there with a dream, man, and just hit up the contacts that we knew and made some product and try to stock it on the shelves. Like I said, we did have support. So from day one of the best things that we did were in Beams in Japan.
Beams, wow, yeah, that's a nice brand.
Yeah. And I had done work with them previously, so that was a connection there. But we're still trying to figure it out, man. Like there's no real, we didn't have a real plan. We just knew we had a vision and we tried to execute it. And it feels like every 6 months we're restarting, pressing the reset button, man. Because
I mean and that's really cool as well, because I was looking at some of your newer, so the Nostalgia Ultra sort of release that you guys had, and then you guys had some throwback MJ incorporated with some Bob Marley. So where did you guys grow up, and where did all these influences come from?
oh man, we grew up in the 80s, but I grew up in Mount Druitt, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so I grew up in Fairfield.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So automatically growing out those, the culture is just richer. No disrespect to any other part of Sydney, but when you're living out there, you're forced to jump on the train to come out this way. If you lived out here, there was no reason for you to ever go out there.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted to get beat down. Now.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that at all. But growing up in the 80s and the 90s, man, so Bob Marley and pop culture was what we had. We didn't have the internet. We had magazines. I had older brothers. They were my Google, man. They were my hype beast, you know what I mean? Like, that's where I looked at everything. And just growing up in a musical family as well, an artistic family. So, that's where it all came
I mean, look, honestly, I've said this a couple times, but it seems like Western Sydney are breeding all the best talent in Sydney right now.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, literally, I think I know what it is, though. I think it's that, like you said, when you grow out West, it's the immigrant mentality. It's completely different.
100%.
And, I went to, university at Macquarie. I've worked in the city. I've worked at Olympic Park. I've been out to, different places outside of Western Sydney. And I've talked to people with, I guess my age, and we've done similar things. And one thing that you can never take out of someone is a Western Sydney.
100%.
Like, I can speak to someone and I can just be like, I know 100% you're from Western Sydney, because no matter where you're from in Western Sydney, you have similar commonalities, and a lot of that is coming from that immigrant mentality. Our parents were immigrants, or a lot of us came from single parent families, or Western Sydney is not a soft area. You know what I mean? You got a lot of straight dudes out there, and so coming out of a place like that, how did you sort of incorporate that Western Sydney style to sort of that Sydney Romantics contemporary?
Didn't really have to try so hard, because everywhere we kind of went. So, for example, I'll take it back to working with the Insights and the Subies and stuff.
Yeah.
It was, as you can imagine, it was a clear vision of what Australia looked like. Salty surfer dudes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so me being in there, not being a salty surfer dude, they wanted me to be me. I think they enjoyed the fact that I could see it from the outside looking in. And so I never had to change for anybody. I just had to just bring my flavor into it. And so I've never left that. I've always just been able to wear my heart on my sleeve and be unapologetically me.
Yeah.
So it was only, it just didn't have to try so hard, man. But being a Sydney romantic was more so not saying that this is the best city in the world. It was just more so stamping like, this is where we're from. I'm not necessarily excited by the view of what the rest of the world already sees Sydney as. I think there's another point of view to it.
And I think the view of Sydney is really changing now. I think that
100.
a lot of people, there's a lot of eyes in Sydney right now, but I don't think a lot of people realize it, because when you're so in something, you don't realize the impact that you're having. For example, I guess, when you guys started your brand, you probably never thought that a random guy from Western Sydney from Zimbabwe would be asking you to go on the podcast because his influence.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
never really know the impact of where you what you're doing. So when you were working with the brands like Subies, and you were in more of a corporate sort of environment, I think one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I've seen is that working in a corporate environment really sort of stalls your growth, or it really prevents you from being creative. Did you have that same experience?
No, man. They let our creatives be creatives. I have to say, to this day, that particular place was quite special. They just allowed us to really harness our artistic abilities, man.
Yeah.
And I've never experienced anything like it. And when we had a quick discussion before this, where you were saying that, a lot of people can't stay in particular areas for too long. I somewhat try to urge people to try to at least learn as much as they can in one particular place, to hone your craft on somebody else's coin, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Like, they allowed me to travel. At the age of 22, they were sending me to factories to create.
Yeah.
And to
yeah.
learn the business side of things and to negotiate. And I was rocking up in board shorts and Jordans, man. Like,
Yeah, you would chill it,
like,
yeah.
yeah, you know, like, whoa, like they really trusted this young guy from Mount Druitt to be able to like showcase their brand internationally.
Yeah,
man.
most definitely.
So
I mean, and I think what we were talking about is that we were talking about.
I'll stop you there, but
Yeah.
there was one thing that you do get to a stage is you get tired of learning how not to do things through other people. You
Okay,
get
yeah,
to a
yeah.
point where you're like, you know what, I need to learn some of the things on my own. But so yeah.
But yeah, but basically what we were talking about, how a lot of businesses really, realistically, to have a successful business, bar like a few that just kill it very, very early. Realistically, it takes about 8 to 10 years for you to create a successful business where you have, the right business plan working, where you have your supply chain going and everything's sort of going. It really takes 8 to 10 years. But the thing about me personally is that I am not a patient dude, and I know that especially with my generation, like you said, talking about staying a place for quite a long period of time and learning of people you're working with. A lot of people I don't have that patience, and I think that's something that I'm starting to learn. I'm starting to learn a lot more about patience and a lot more about listening to a lot of people who have made the same mistakes. But now at that point now where they can teach me, hey, don't go in that lane, go in that lane.
100%. And you've got so many tools in front of you. You're giving the world, a lot of the kids now are giving the world in the palm of their hands from the age of 12.
Yeah, yeah.
But no instruction booklet to go along with it, right? So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's whether it be a business, whatever organization is, just continue to surround yourself with people that push you in the best direction you can.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think it's a learning process as well, because even with this podcast, like, I wouldn't even call it a podcast now. Like, even like you said, like before we started recording, we were talking about how, and like you just said a little bit, you were saying that, every 6 months or so, you guys are just developing. You got new ideas, and Sydney Romantics, it changes. Realistically, in your eyes, it changes every 6 months. I feel like that's the same with this. Like, first of all, I started off with the podcast. I wanted to just sound record it. And then someone said, you know what, why don't you try video recording
Yeah,
it?
you can't
And I was just like, all right, well, this is not a conventional podcast. I really shouldn't call it a podcast because it really isn't. And then now it's just more of the DenofTruth show. So I definitely understand and relate to you when you talk about continued growth. Like continuing growing and allowing whatever you've created to, I think, just create itself.
Well, the world changes so rapidly around us. Like, we've obviously, as known as a clothing brand, but we've changed into more of a development brand. Whereas, I just got to be honest, creating product to maintain your livelihood is a really hard thing to do.
You reckon?
Yeah, man. Especially when retail is so hard when you're competing with online stores, for example. You know what I mean? Like, you got to sell X amount of products to keep the lights on, especially when you try to keep things locally.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, trying to make things locally is really
But
hard.
I think that's why a lot of people rock with you guys, because you guys made that effort.
Yeah.
Like, you guys could have went the alternative route, and
Yeah.
I guess things might have been a lot easier for you, but you guys decided to do it the authentic way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of people don't have that dedication, and realistically, a lot of people get into business to make money. But if you guys are choosing to do this, there's obviously another, I guess, reason why you guys are doing it. It's authentic.
Yeah, we try to be, and since we've reset, we're developing for other brands, for example, who want to create things locally.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're that go-to, because we've started doing it and we treated ourselves as the guinea pigs, and we know what's right, what's wrong, where to go, who to go to. They come to us because we've done all the hard work and we produce things for.
Most definitely.
Yeah, like for the Salty Boys, we're producing their next collection. You know what I mean?
Man, the Saturday Boys are killing it. I'm telling you,
Every
man,
podcaster then gets come up.
Hey, look, you gotta shout out the homies. You gotta
Yeah,
shout out
yeah.
anyone you know. I give everyone I know a plug.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. I give a platform.
Yeah.
But look, back to what you were saying a little bit about developing brands and
Yeah.
working with different brands.
Mm-hmm.
One of the people who I saw you work with earlier on was Sampha.
Yeah.
Sampha the Great, and
Yeah.
I've seen, I saw, to be honest, you guys were the first introduction to her for me.
Yep.
I saw you guys working with her. I was like, man, who is this girl? And then I saw her getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, then I started seeing her going to Africa, and I started seeing her doing shows with other big artists. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you guys work with different artists and, what you guys have done with her as well?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes down to Sampa, she was just a young student actually learning sound engineering here in Sydney. But we ran into her at one of the shows where she just picked up the mic and just started rocking it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just from mutual friends, she needed some help just creatively.
Yeah.
Whether it be logos or videos or shoots or styling and all the rest of it. And so her connect reached out to me, and we've been around since day one.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, so I produced her first logos and branding, and we kind of not separated, but hustled.
Yeah, yeah.
And now with those latest shows that you'd seen her in Africa, and the launch of her new album that's coming out, she wanted her A team back together, and she wanted a rebrand, and that's where we are. But in terms of us working with other brands and artists, it's more so just because we know we can't do it on our own, man. So we just want to provide a platform where we can just give a point of view together, man. Like there's these other young cats that I'm working with called Inquisitive Minds at the moment.
Well, they're good. I like it. They do it. Yeah, they're good.
They call me their manager, but I'm not a manager at all. I consider myself more of an advisor more than anything else.
I like the aesthetic. I like what they do, especially with the way they release music. The branding is really good. So, okay, it makes a bit of sense that you're working with them. Yeah. And I like their sound too. It's interesting. They have an interesting sound. I don't know how to describe it. I think people just have to listen to them. Yeah. But I like how they're sort of conscious, but you can still listen to the club and like 100%. Their record in the club. You know 100%. What I mean? I like that about them.
And they're from Western Sydney.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Western Sydney got all the talent. Right there, we're popping.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've got a real point of view. You know what I mean? It's like you said, it's a culture connoisseur. But I feel like they're all culture connoisseurs out there because you're immersed in it. You know, you can't fake that.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think the last podcast, Franco was talking a little bit about that. He was saying that, you know, regardless of where you are, who you are, what you look like, people rock with authenticity. Authenticity. Okay. We'll cut that. Nah, shaky. Shaky.
That's honesty there.
Yeah. But people just like that about people. People like the real. People just like real people doing real things, regardless of where you're from.
Yeah.
So I reckon that's definitely true. Right. So with your experience, you know, obviously being in the industry for such a long time, what do you think are what's the hardest part of starting a business in Australia or starting a clothing business in Australia?
It's finding the distribution channels, man. Like the retail industry is so small. Like happen to be in one great one right now. Yeah. But as you see, even with Honor and Capsule, there's been so many so many versions of it.
Yeah.
And they've closed down. You know, so unless you have the ability to create your own platform, which is something that you can do right now. Yeah. That's what it is. And you've got to be multifaceted these days. Yeah. You know? And one of the challenging things is, I think one of the best things for us is we've got a strong story. And if you've got the product to match, you're on a winning formula there. You know what I mean? Like one of the hardest things is, and to be honest, one of the other hardest things is marketing. One thing that we never really put into our plan was to invest as much into the product. As much as you invest into product, you've got to invest maybe more so in marketing as well.
Oh, do you reckon? I honestly think that right now, the best way to market something is just through social media. Because honestly, that's where I get all my news.
It's all new to us though, man. We're old dogs. Like I come from a wholesale bricks and mortar kind of world, you know what I mean? Where stores rule supreme. And so when social media comes, we're still trying to figure it out. I'm blessed to have a teenage son who's, you know, he's my link to the culture.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
He's in the know.
He's in the know. With technology and all the rest of it, 100%. But I still feel like, still trying to figure it out.
And what were as a brand, what were some of your struggles early on? What sort of things that you guys were sort of struggling and not being able to sort of grasp?
As a smaller brand, it's really hard to find suppliers who will produce for you.
Really?
Yeah. That was probably one of the main reasons why we decided to make it locally, was because we could just fuck around with smaller numbers. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't even knock on my past connects, man, because they're all in China. Yeah. And they don't want to see you unless you're doing 1,000 units.
That's a lot of units, man.
100%,
That's
right?
a lot of units, yeah.
And so we were thinking sustainably through necessity. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, we'll make 50 pieces. And it made sense to us. It's like, well, whatever 50 we sell, we're not adding too much waste into the world as well. But the reason why we made it locally was because we found suppliers who were happy to make 50 units, even 30 or 20 units.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
things that are kind of like safe to play around with, because the more you go, the more investment you need to do. So
Yeah.
for example, if you get a $20,000 order, awesome, you need $10,000 to make that stuff,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think those are the small things people don't understand. You know what I mean? And that's why it's good to have you on here because you're giving people, you're telling people what not to do, where to go before they actually make the mistake, which is really important.
Yeah. And I want people to know more than anything that this stuff didn't happen by accident, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Ryan and I have worked so hard prior to Sydney Romantics, you know, and we've somewhat made a name for ourselves in the industry. And Sydney Romantics is just the brainchild of it, you know?
Yeah, damn. And it's dope, man. It's really, I like seeing dope people succeed. You know what I mean? And I feel as if that we should always champion people who are taking the hard route. Because I always say, man, like,
Yeah.
like I always say, like one of my friends was like, his name is Delaware, he's an artist, and he was telling me, he was like, you know, it's very easy for a lot of people to wake up and go to work every day where you don't bear the burden. You know what I mean? As in, you go to work and you know, look, if you stuff up, your manager's gonna fix it.
Yeah.
You know, regardless, someone's gonna fix it.
Yeah.
You can go home and it'll be safe.
Yeah.
But when you're starting something on your own, and regardless of what the situation is, if something fucks up, that's your fault.
Yep.
If something doesn't do well, it's your fault.
Yep.
You know, if people say if people are, I guess, not that it really matters, but if people are critical of some of the stuff you put out, that is your fault. You have to go back to the drawing board. You know, it's more of an emotional burden than it is sort of like a, I guess, sort of like a physical burden, if that makes sense.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like, it's one of the craziest things to do.
Yeah.
And you bear so much of your own personal growth on your business.
So true.
You know,
Yeah.
and so your happiness, your successes, your thing, everything, because you're wearing your heart on your sleeve and the world can see it. The failures, it's all personal, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's true as well. You know, even, you know, I'm starting something on your own. It makes you, I wouldn't say appreciate, but I understand what like athletes go through a lot more. Like when you're literally on a world scale and you're having millions of people attack you.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? You're out here trying your hardest.
Yeah.
And your hardest isn't good enough. And
Yeah.
you have millions of people. And that's why, you know, even on another point, you know, even when you go into the news and then you see these news reporters, even that they have writers, and they're just bagging out people. You know, people that don't deserve it. Like, for example, like Latrell Mitchell from New South Wales in the Roosters. He had a shit game in Origin 1, and people were just like, reporters, like well-known reporters, this guy's like under 23, like he's a young guy, and people are just like saying he's shit, he doesn't deserve to be playing, you know, like why, you know, just bagging this guy, and then the next segment would be talking about mental illness. You know what I mean? And you
100%.
sort of see the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, I don't feel like doing something that you love is not work. On the other hand,
100%.
it's not work, because really, you know, like I could probably do this if someone told me to do 7 days, 16 hours. I could probably do it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I don't feel like it's work. So I think
100%.
we are fortunate that we
Yep.
have that, you know,
Yep.
also on the other hand as well.
Yeah, well, I've learnt so much in these last 5 years with Sydney Romantics than I have working for somebody else.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Just in terms of, not so much in terms of technical ability, more so about myself than anything else,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
Because,
yeah.
you know, you've got a son to put through school, you know, like the balance of being an artist and being home and being a husband.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like there was so many points early on within this whole journey where I nearly lost everything. And my wife said to me, if you don't stop, you're going to lose everything you've worked so hard to be, because I wouldn't be present.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
be at a restaurant and I'd order my wife the wrong dish. You know,
Yeah.
and that's, it may sound simple enough, but
Yeah.
that's quality time that you just
Yeah.
fucked up on.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and it's just like, shit, where am I? You know,
Yeah.
so it changed my outlook on success. For me,
What do you mean by
success is just being able to be present, man. If you want to work, then you're at work, and if you're at home, then you're at home. You know,
Wow.
just be present.
I mean, I think that's literally the issue that I have. Like, you know, like I am honestly, till I go to sleep, I'm 1,000%.
Yeah, man.
Like I have 1,000% energy. I don't, like I can go for long hours at periods of time. And I was watching this podcast, and I think the guy's name is Naval, and then he was saying that like that's not a normal thing. Like you should be able to go home, spend 30 minutes with yourself, and literally not worry about tomorrow's problems. You should be, like you said, you should be in the present.
You have to, man. It's really hard. It's easier said than done. And
Yeah,
I'm still
yeah.
battling with it.
Yeah.
But in order to gain that success, you really need to figure out what's most important, you know? And if being with my wife means being with my wife, or being my son means being with my son, I need to be there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I think it's hard. Like for me, I literally know what you mean, because sometimes I'm looking and talking to someone and I'm gone. Like I am like behind you, walking away, because I'm just so focused on getting to the next thing. Okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. But like you said, sometimes I may affect your relationships with people.
100%.
Because sometimes I think also sometimes when you're trying to create something on your own, you don't realize it, but you also sometimes you put a lot of people to the side. And I guess if for example, if I'm doing it to you, you already know what it is because you're going through it and you know exactly what I'm doing. But for a lot of other people who don't understand what you're doing, they may see that as rude, or they may see that
100%.
as you're putting them to the side. 100%. So you really got to try have that balance.
You need to have that balance, man. It's that's the key right now. And there's many ways that we can figure out how to do. And there's always going to be things thrown at us. We're living in a world full, like, where information is being thrown at us constantly, right? And we can say anything about, how do we, politics, or the game scores, or, so-and-so at Fashion Week, or whatever it is. The only way we can balance it out is if we plug out.
So from someone who's actually been raised in Sydney, and someone who's sort of seen the change in the decades, what have you been sort of impressed in regards to the culture? What sort of progression have you seen really in the last 20, 30 years in Sydney?
Wow. How much it's only happened really so much. I've seen a big progression in the last 5 years, man. Like what you're saying about in terms of Western Sydney.
Yeah.
Like Sydney comes to a place where I always compare it to other cities. You see cities like the New Yorks, the Londons, the Tokyos, the LAs as the beacons of what representing your city is.
Yeah.
It's because the whole city represents the city.
Yeah.
Whereas here I always felt like there was always barriers being put up.
Yeah.
You're from Mount Druitt, then I'm gonna fuck with you, or it was just too many barriers. And I can only comment from where I was growing up, the industry that I was in was in fashion.
Yeah.
Where it was completely like, and fashion's supposed to be the most progressive.
I guess so, yeah. There's always a couple of years ahead.
Yeah, 100%, right? And so you'd go to fashion parties, and if you're not wearing what they're wearing, then you're like, you're not part of this party. It's
Bougie.
like, you know what I mean? It's like, well, you're supposed to be pretty open-minded.
Yeah.
I feel like that's slowly starting to, like, the walls are starting to be broken, and we're all trying to, like, fuck with each other, and we're all bigging each other up, and that's the only way our city is going to, like, move forward, is if we all just, like, collaborate, like real collaboration. I think that's the biggest change.
And I think, look,
anything.
like you said, when we're talking about this quite a lot, but we got to big up where we're from. But you see it a lot in Western Sydney. You see now a lot of people are just extremely proud to be from Western Sydney. But I would also like it to see people being, like you said, proud to be from Sydney, period. Regardless of what borough you're from, regardless from what area you're from. Just being proud of being in a place like Sydney. I mean, Sydney is one of the most multicultural places in the world. There's not too many places where you have so much multiculturalism, and it's only going to increase over the next 10 years.
Yep.
There's only ever going to think about how many immigrants that we have right now in Sydney. Now think about 10 years when we start to have kids. Think about how many mixed and random, looking kids that we're going to have.
100%.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what's great about the city. Like, even if you look at our politics, I mean, I think if you look at our politics, even the Liberal Party, they're pretty progressive.
Yep.
Regardless of what people think, that we're fortunate enough to live in a country where we do have, I guess, a lot of these passes where we can actually be ourselves. We can be proud of where we come from. We can have so many different people from different countries come together.
Yep.
And that's what makes Sydney dope. I don't know what's more dope than that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what,
100%. And it was hard growing up with. I mean, my parents are pretty open-minded, but with that migrant mentality, it was hard to be different as well. You know what I mean? Like, they couldn't tell. My parents could never tell me go into the arts or be a fashion designer. It's always doctor,
Lawyer.
lawyer, you know?
Yeah,
like-
yeah, accountant.
But all those things are kind of like starting to break down.
Yeah.
You know, and it's people of not just color, but we're all kind of like adding our own flavor to the soup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool. And look, to be honest, I always say I didn't really blame because my mom's first generation. I came to Australia in 2000. So if you look at our mom's mentality, she was thinking of more of like, okay, we've come to Australia. Let's try to put this boy through university.
Yeah.
Let's try to like get him to do commerce, which is what I did,
Yeah.
and sort of get him into an organization.
Yeah.
And you know what? She had the best mentality in regards to doing it because that's sort of, I would say, the safe bet. You know, that's
Yep.
always that safety net that no matter what happens, you're at least gonna have that safety net and something to go back to. But now, like you said, I think now you can just slowly start seeing these people like get out of that and start to be proud of doing art, proud of being designers. You can sort of see it.
100%. It's funny that I bring out that kind of stereotype, but my parents were pretty liberal. My dad was an artist, so you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
If there was
That's liberal
anything,
as hell. Yeah.
if there was anything that my parents, they didn't push us at all, man. They just
Yeah.
let us do what the hell we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it was just all out of a place of love and out of respect, and that was pretty much
Yeah.
that was our upbringing.
And look, I think it's really cool to be in an environment like that, you know. And I know a lot of people who their parents like they're literally doing 5-year degrees right now, and they don't like what they're doing. And I'm telling you, I'm like, listen, like
Yep.
this is an expensive course. Like
Yeah.
you're doing law right now, you Sid.
Yep.
That's a hell of an expensive course. You
Yep.
really want to go all the way through it.
Yep.
And they're only going through it because of their parents, and I respect that as well.
100%.
That's a cool thing if you're dedicating yourself to your parents.
Yep.
But once you finish that degree,
Yep.
and you got to get into the real world,
100%.
you better like what the hell you're doing because the
100.
shit gets real.
100%.
When that HEX payment comes in,
Completely,
Yeah.
completely. And I'm at that stage with my son now. He's at Sydney Uni,
yeah,
and it's all good. Like it's only his first year, and who knows? It's going to be the same degree. Same course he's going to be
Yeah.
doing in the next year. But you know, you
Yeah.
figure it out. But it's funny. Like I'm pretty blessed with being able to see both sides of the coin at such a young age.
yeah.
So it keeps
I
me
mean, look, I
motivated.
reckon you'll be a pretty cool dad. You know, do you reckon your son thinks you're a cool dad?
I'd like to say he does. Well,
Yeah.
Our dynamic is pretty crazy. Yeah. So he's my stepson.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I've been his dad since he was 2.
Yeah.
So he's called me dad pretty much straight away, and his father's South African,
Oh, okay, cool.
right? And so
yeah.
and his mum's Filipino, and
Oh,
I'm
okay.
Indonesian. So we're all just like,
mixed.
yeah,
mixed
man.
group of people.
Yeah, and it's just when they say it takes a tribe to raise a child, man, like
That's good.
he's
Man.
he's the man.
I don't have any kids. I can't even take care of myself, man. Like take care of someone.
Dude,
That's
I was
it.
24.
24. I'm 23.
I was 20. I was 23 when I met him. When I became his dad.
Damn.
Dude.
I'm telling you, man. I can barely take care of myself. Take care of someone else. That's a stretch.
Yeah.
Oh man. But
But you're surprised what you can do when you have to, man.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
for
reckon?
sure.
Oh, well, I hope so. I don't want to know anytime soon. But also, that being said, you know, going on a little bit about the Sydney culture and stuff like
Yep.
that. What was it like? I would say probably early 2000s. Because I always like to ask people who've been in Australia for a long period of time, what was it like earlier 2000s?
The Australian fashion scene was pretty awesome back then, man.
Yeah?
Like what Subi had done is still unprecedented to me. They really had their it was completely original. When you say Australian street wear, it was 100% honest. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
For their story.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it represented Mount Druitt or whatever.
Whatever.
They were just representing themselves, and they took the world by storm. You know, so it was a pretty exciting place. But it was very predictable in a sense that it was always talking about it was beach culture and it was
Yeah.
skate culture, and I've always kind of looked out from where I am because I always felt like where I lived was somewhat of a bubble. Always wanted more.
Yeah.
So that stuff was attractive to me. You know what I mean? So the art scene was pretty good, and the fashion scene was blowing. You had some great brands coming out, and what changed everything was these bigger retail companies just monopolizing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I'd probably say the opposite with the Australian scene. I mean, I think that, especially with these big corporations, I think it's sort of and negative and a positive at the same time. Because the positive, because you're having investment into what you're doing, so you can increase the span, you can get into different markets, you can get more investment into the arts. But on the negative side, I swear, it just drains like slowly. It just drains the originality of whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Over a long period, it just drains the like authenticity. I gotta get that word right.
Yeah.
But it just drains it out completely. But you know, I think what I think in the next couple of years, what's going to happen is I think people are going to start to realize that the Australian entertainment scene, the Australian art scene, is going to be a big, I guess, cultural export.
Yeah.
I think people are going to slowly realize that, you know, we can actually make money off this, and I think a lot of large organizations are going to come to Australia.
It's coming
100%.
full circle, man, because back in the early 2000s, we were partying hard.
Yeah?
Yeah, dude. Like, we could go out maybe 3 times a week and jump from bar to bar to bar to bar, man. And it's just hip hop or electronic or house just every night. It was way before the lockout laws. Damn. And maybe because there wasn't many options other than partying, but that's what we did. And I feel like that's coming back. We danced like,
yeah.
And I can't even remember the last time I danced.
You know,
Salty was probably,
yeah.
was the last party that I danced at. And I feel like that's where it's coming back. It's coming full
It's
circle.
slowly coming back. I think the first thing we've got to address, and I don't know why, I guess people my age or just people who care about nightlife aren't making a bit more of a ruckus about this, but this whole lockout thing now is starting to become a joke. Where on a Saturday night, if you go out to the city and every week you're seeing the same people, then you know no new people are coming to the city.
Yeah.
So where is everyone? Where's everyone partying? Everyone's at home. Like literally everything. You've got the whole city of Sydney at home. Sydney is probably one of the top 10 best cities
in the world. Yeah.
Imagine being a tourist,
yeah.
coming to Sydney, and you can't. There's no places to go out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Melbourne.
Yeah.
Realistically,
and you know what? People are saying that all the time, man. Yeah, I'm going to Melbourne
because look at even Canberra, man. I was in Canberra the whole time. People keep dissing Canberra. Canberra's this, Canberra's that.
Yeah.
Listen, Canberra has no lockout laws. People are partying. People are going out to clubs. But I definitely think, because I was reading something about Senator Gladys and the Liberals, how they think that the lockout law has been a success, and they're going to review the laws and see if they can change it up. But man, the damage that they've done, like literally, they stole a good 4 to 5 years of, I think it's like 34 years of people's nightlife experience. Like it's literally just sucked the soul out of it. And now we've got a lot of like you said, like a lot of smaller sort of events trying their hardest, but really, you can't be profitable. And then you have all those like noise restrictions. It sucks the soul out of the city.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously bad things that's happened. There's good things that's happened as well. It means that a lot of people have gone to other outskirts of Sydney to entertain themselves, right?
Yeah.
But to go with the lockout laws and to go with the high rent, that affects it as well.
Yeah.
Like there's so many places closing down. Like Cake Wines was somewhere that you could go. It was quite different, but they're closing down.
Really? I didn't know that.
Tonight's their last night, bro.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Cake Wines?
Yes. I mean, the business is still going to exist, but in terms of the cellar door where they entertain, it's closing down.
Damn, that's crazy. That's
a shame, right?
Yeah, it's a shame. And that's what I don't get. I just don't get. I understand the concept of they created the lockout laws because obviously we're having those violent incidents and people getting hurt, even dying. You know, I definitely understand the worry people have and the government. And they have to protect the greater good of people. I definitely understand that aspect to it. But when you just affect the whole population based on the actions of a few, you know, we have to start to consider whether, you know, this has been really successful, because they're measuring this from whether this has been successful or not been successful. I think they're the only people who are measuring it like that, because we're the ones who are really affected. They're not really affected by it because they're not gonna be out here trying to have a social life. I wouldn't say they're extremely creative people who are trying to have an art gallery out in Sydney to give a showcase, or someone who's trying to become an artist and needs to have shows currently, you know, consistently to make money. They're not those type of people. Yeah. You know, so I think the way that they measure it is completely wrong. They're not sort of understanding our perspective and the people's perspective.
Do you feel like the youth have felt suppressed by it?
150%.
Yeah.
Look, when I turned 18 July 26th. 3 months later, there was a lockout laws. I had about 3 months of going out clubbing, so I got a little taste of it. Yeah. You know, I got a little taste of it. crazy.
Yeah.
King's Cross, crazy.
Yeah.
Smelt. The whole joint smelt. So I got a little taste of it. And then boom, lockout laws. And it wasn't like a one night, everything changed. It was like slowly a progression over a year. Things started to shut down. Things started getting extremely expensive to get in. And that meant, okay, well, we're at 19. We're at uni. We work 2 days a week. Can we afford to pay $40 to go into a club? No. Are we going to really blame the club because they need to also keep the upkeep? No. Are we going to pay $15 for a vodka Red Bull? We can't afford to do that.
Dude, yeah.
You know what I mean? If a whole night out becomes too expensive, we stop going out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it slowly starts dying over a period of 3 years' time. So of course you feel suppressed because I can't tell you the last time where I've had a clubbing experience and it's been crazy.
It's crazy because I don't feel suppressed because one, I'm older, I'm not going out as much,
Yeah.
and because we completely abused it when we were young.
It was
you know?
young.
Yeah, but
It was young, yeah.
yeah, but 100%, I feel like it's going to turn.
Yeah.
I feel like it has to.
Yeah.
And if you're definitely feeling suppressed, then that's news. That's exciting to me because
Yeah.
it does need to change 100%. But in saying that, because you're being suppressed, do you just accept it? Because there's a new term that I've heard from some younger called JOMO, which is
JOMO.
joy of missing out.
Joy of missing out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess you can look at it like that in terms of, okay, we've not been able to go to clubs. So what have we been doing to sort of account for that? And that means that I think people have become a ton more creative. Like
Yeah,
people have been
I
doing
think so.
people have been doing things at a very small scale,
Yep.
and then inviting people, and people have been showing up. People have been financially as well supporting. People have been actually supporting movements a lot more because they realize the value of these movements. They realize that, okay, we know the restrictions that this person's facing, so we might as well try to invest in small grassroots things now. Before, so I get what people are saying, that we're missing out, and then that means we're getting more creative, and
Yeah.
in the long term there may be better effects. But man, I can't name you 5 clubs.
No.
I literally
Yeah.
cannot. I'm not even sure if Ivy's still going.
Yeah,
you know what I
I'm
mean?
pretty sure
And
it
Ivy, even if you didn't like the music, everyone knows Ivy used to be a spot for people.
Yeah.
That used to be like, you turn 18, you go Ivy.
Yeah.
Like it's a rite of passage.
Completely.
Or you turn 18 or you go to King's Cross. It's like a rite of passage. Just
Yeah.
go experience it. Now it's like you turn 18. Oh, what do you guys want to do?
But this is why it's going to change, because now you see we keep bringing up what's happening in Greater Sydney, where there's a lot more people, because people aren't going out, they're creating a lot more.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
means they've got to create places for them to be able to showcase their artistic abilities, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so now I feel like there's a room for a new experience where it's used to just be clubbing, whereas now you see parties where it's just an art gallery or / pop-up shop / party. Do you know what I mean? So there's going to be more of those popping up, and that's what's exciting to me.
And it has been.
It has to be.
It has been. People, your hands was forced.
Yeah.
You know? But listen, I really appreciate your time. We really, for all my people who follow me, people from the Den, we appreciate
Thanks,
how
man.
you guys have been really supporting the Sydney culture. We appreciate your efforts. We know it's not easy, especially in this climate.
Yep.
But just to show, we got to show people they appreciate it before it's too late. That's my vibe this whole year.
Yep.
Appreciate
Thank you
the
so
people
much.
who have been putting in the work.
Yep.
Anyways, I'd like to appreciate that, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for
And
having me, man.
thank you. No worries. All good.
Peace.
Easy.